It's perfect. Okay with
That's
me.
great. Okay, so I think the place I would like to start is the fact that you do an incredible amount of work with those who are near end of life. What drew you to that, and what links does it have with your practice?
Well, I actually started, accompanying people when I started my path, my teaching in 1975. There were people. I was, I think I told you the first and last time we met that I used to work in a center quite near where you are in Wisbeach, and there were people who went there to because they were in grief or because they were sick and they were preparing themselves. So I had some experience of that, but in those days I was a very young man as well, and I worked mainly as a Buddhist, and from a very Buddhist background, which was my background and training. And then when my first wife died in '99, and the same year my beloved niece committed suicide, I felt I wanted to dedicate, my work in some way related. And as usual, the universe came along and pulled me into this hospice in Bangkok. And I was also already looking after my Alzheimer's mother. So I went into this work really, with some experience, but not quite prepared for the intensity of it, because the children who I had to accompany and then the adults, and they were all my teachers, and I then, it was a very different situation, very challenging, because I had to find out what worked and what didn't. And in many cases, I couldn't really trot out the things that I knew, because these weren't necessarily Buddhist.
Yeah.
They were, particularly the children, they hadn't time to be anything but children, So I had to find a new way to really to approach the whole thing and to do the work that I was given to do. And I found that I kept on going back to my Buddhism, obviously, and to the Tai Chi. But over the years, since 2000, when I started there, I kind of let drop most of the language and most of the terms and I hardly talk of meditation these days. I hardly use the term. I prefer not to. And because I work with so many people, not just the dying and their families, who aren't necessarily Buddhist or are interested at all in anything spiritual, and much less in Oriental spirituality. But I work with a lot of professionals, health professionals here in Spain, doctors and nurses who have been very, they're trained scientifically and very rationally, and they're not interested in spirituality, let's say. And again, they wouldn't have a clue what I was talking about if I used Buddhist terms. So this came home to me when I first started in Spain, with the professionals, who I had to get something across to them which would avoid the word meditation, for example, So I still do that. I never use a word. I use words like silence, pause, it means the same thing, but it hasn't got the baggage.
My understanding from our interaction so far is that you are a big believer in taking the practice that you have on the mat out into the world in general, and that's really where you see the work. What is it about your Tai Chi practice that made you see the connection with everyday life, and what particular facets of it do you bring to your work?
Well, I think the main thing was that it saved my life. To the Tai Chi.
Big statement. Tell us more.
Well, crazy days, 60s and all that. And I don't have to go any more into that. But the Tai Chi and the spiritual practice was the discipline with which I use to stay sane and to recover my health. And I always felt from the very beginning, you know, a deep gratitude, deep homage to the discipline. But I also felt that this was not something to be done like, you know, an interesting pastime, or even a practice that you do, a discipline that you do now and then. I was convinced at that time, I mean, for years before I started to teach it, I was convinced that it was a very precious art that could be used in life, that actually needed to be used in life, and not just compartmentalized and kept in the dojo, if you like, you know. And you know, I kind of, in my first years in the mid 70s, I struggled to find ways of trying to connect, you know, my own practice to my own life, but also try to transmit this, you know, the importance of not just having a practice or a discipline that you honed and you refined, you know, in the dojo, but you took it out, and the consequences that it had in your life, the transformative qualities, you know, in your life, in your relationship, everyday relationship, not something sort of grand or sort of enormous, but just in the day-to-day interaction with people, with yourself, with your own body, with the way you eat, the way you treat nature, the way, and all that, you know. And this was the 70s, and you know, there were a lot of very, very interesting thinkers coming out then, ideas being exchanged. And
Put that music on.
please.
Turn it up, please.
Anyway, I mean, that's how I got to, that's how I tried to bridge. And I'm still doing that, because in the work that I do now, particularly with the health professionals.
Everybody, I'm going to try, and then I'll unmute you. All right, well, let me. Hang on, Tew. Hang on. I need to unmute you. Unmute. It's not unmuting you. Why is it not unmuting you? Can you unmute yourself?
I just did it.
Ah, fantastic. Great. Okay. So I'm sorry about that.
So I was just saying, I mean, if you don't mind me just flowing on.
Yes, go on.
I'm working now mainly from home with health professionals who are in Spain anyway. They're going through a real big crisis, and it's burnout. They're going through burnout. It's not just health professionals. A lot of people are, as a result of these last few months. Yeah. But for health professionals, it's particularly serious, the problem, because, you know, people have just woken up to the fact that if the health professionals can't go on because they're exhausted, then who's going to look after the people who are getting sick again? So it's just become a very big theme. And I've, you know, again, over the years, I've had some experience of working with burnt out people, not just in hospitals and stuff, but burnt out teachers and therapists and so on, but never with such intensity as now. And again, I've had to dig very deep in me to see what I have that may help them, you know. And it's been a great challenge and very, very creative. And again, I've gone back to the Tai Chi. I've drawn from that, and I've used the Qigong exercise, but modified and sort of freed from the language, if you like, and the sort of mindfulness practices and so on and so forth, but all within this context of not only how to help people to recover from burnout, but how to prevent it. Because there's now a little window. It's more relaxed, but the next wave is coming for sure. It's coming already. You know, it's not going to be as big as the one they're expecting in autumn. So the whole theme in Spain, where I live here, is to prepare now. You know, to because prevention is always much easier than recovery, trying to recover, and especially burnout, which is very similar to a kind of burnouts that people who have been in war,
Yes.
I've worked with a couple of soldiers in my time, and it's the same sort of exhaustion. I would call it a spiritual exhaustion.
Okay. Just answer a couple of questions for people who are out there. Firstly, I'm going to record the session. I will put it on YouTube, and you can do with it what you want from there. And for Dan, I will get to your question, but if you let me just go on for a bit. Okay, so one of the questions I often ask when I'm interviewing an Aikido teacher is, what are you working on at the moment, or what have you learned recently? And I suspect that your answer, you've just kind of, well, you haven't said what you've learned, but you're having stuff revealed to you as you take on this work and you search deep to find answers to huge problems. Anything you'd like to share with us?
Yes. I mean, I'm constantly learning. I hope to be constantly learning until I leave. But what I'm constantly learning now is something I knew, which is that emotions are vibrational. Okay, this is something I spent years and years sort of trying to transmit to people. In the Tai Chi, as you know, is behind it is a vision, which is also the basis of Chinese medicine, which treats the organism, the energy, the essential energy of the organism as flow and vibration, right? Flow and vibration. And so when you go to an acupuncture, for example, he or she will put a needle into a specific place, a specific dramatic moment where he or she can access your flow and either tune it down or bring it up. See, and so good health is seen as a kind of balance, a harmony between what we call the yin and the yang, neither excessive nor defective. But also something else which people don't, when they think of acupuncture or Tai Chi, they think of the movements of yang and yin, but they forget too that it's also vibrational. We also look at health in terms of vibration. Like, for example, if you're constantly angry, you're constantly regenerating this vibration within you and radiating it and affecting other people. And in the same way, if you're in an angry environment, you will be absorbing this, even if it's not directed towards you. And then there's the transpersonal, if you like, vibration of anger in the world. I'm just talking about one emotion, which we all know. But emotions are vibrational. And this I've always, sometimes in the course of my work, I work with people deeply depressive or deeply anxious and so on. So I've always used Qigong in a vibrational way. But the people I'm working with are not depressed. They're very sane people. They're very committed people, committed to their work, motivated, highly trained, good people, doctors and nurses who are right on top of their job. But due to the intensity, one thing is the intensity of their work, but the other thing is the intensity of the emotion that has really come to the surface as a result of the virus, as a result of the lockdown, of the lack of contact and heavy decisions to make. That these perfectly well people are the people who are burnt out at the moment, you see? And a lot of this is because of the vibrations that they have felt and which many of them have suppressed up till now, because they've had to get up and get on with their work, But now there's a slight relaxation, only slight here, which allows this to come up. It's like a soldier coming back from war. During the battle, he or she is very involved in surviving. So you don't have time for that. When they come back home, immediately they relax. Their PT, traumatic syndrome, comes out. And the same with the professionals now, see? So fortunately, the groups that I have been working with caught it early, if you like. They were, some of them had trained with me already, and they sort of were aware that they were entering into a very intense, rather warlike situation, and they needed to have the tools. Now, this is where the medical training, at least here in Spain, I know it's much better in England because you have Macmillan and Madame Curie and all that. The nursing is a much better training. But here, it's not part of the training. And the doctors, only those who are getting into palliative care are touching this aspect of the training, which I would call spiritual training. Spiritual because you're dealing with intangibles. I said to you in our last meeting, I don't look at spiritual as a religion or belief system or anything. It's deep humanity, which is this sort of part of your humanity which you can't kind of get hold of, like your fear, your deep distress, the distress of others, which affects you. You go home with, you can't sleep because somebody has died and their family couldn't be there. So you're in distress. So there's a kind of secondhand distress. And all these things, they need practice. That's the whole point. The practice is not a strategy or a technique. The practice is what prepares you as a human to live these moments of distress and of intensity. And for this, I go back to the Tai Chi because you just have to really modify, the stuff that we use in let's say, hand-to-hand, playing around with touch and all that. But if you just take the combat part out and free it from that dimension, which is great fun, but it's very limited, But if you release that, then the essence of the discipline of Tai Chi, I found out, is very, very precious.
So as a teacher of Aikido, I would say that my job is to give my students the tools they need to deal with the daily fight that goes on in life, as opposed to the martial aspect on the mat, if you like. So I'm giving them mindfulness to observe how to find their best selves and cope well with whatever life throws at them. Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing that that's really what you see the job as.
I'm trying. I'm trying,
So if you were to ask me, if you said to me, well, what are the key principles within your art that help people do that? I would have an answer. What would your answer be?
Well, there are certain aspects of the art which really help, really help to prevent, and other aspects which help to recover. So these 3 months have been a big learning curve for me, because what my intention has been at the very beginning in March, when this rather big group of nurses from palliative care, intensive care, care homes, which were very badly treated by the government here. They didn't have the proper stuff. Anyway, they got hold of me and they said, look, can you give us something so that we can prevent, because we know it's coming, because people were just swarming in at that time. So I discovered, I chose certain practices, if you like. And I think the most important one and the simplest one for the health professionals to take on, because they can do it during their day's work. This is what challenged me, to give them something that they didn't have to sort of stop or, leave the room or, you know what I mean? Or do it at home and then try and fix it. But something that they could do during the work, once they got it, obviously, once they got it. And there's one exercise that we do, which is really the one word that sums it up in Chinese is sung. Sung means centering and anchoring, centering and lowering. And you have the same thing in Aikido, you know, this staying centered and anchored and present, see? Because, why is it so important? Because generally in a distressful situation, the anxiety of others as well as yourself makes you rise, you know? The breathing rises to a point where you're gagging practically. So you're not really breathing all the day's work. If you're in this anxiety, this is a factor in burnout, because eventually you might be okay for a week, but after a while, you're going to start really exhausting your energy if you're not breathing properly while you work, you know? So we did just very, very simple movements, you know, with intention, always intention, breathing and movement. This is what I've done for the last 45 years. And of centering and lowering, and then together with that, the mindfulness. Then once they've got it through the movement first, then they can do it without movement, just with the intention. Once it's kind of integrated into their way of being. So this has become a kind of in Spanish, herramienta. It's a tool. It's a tool, you know, for staying centered, you know. And then after a while, like we go over it the first 2 weeks, and they say, oh, I don't get it yet. I have to go away and sort of, you know, in a corner and do this, but it helps me when I come back. But the whole point of this is to do it while they're working. See, so this is one aspect. And then as the COVID stuff, you know, went on and more intense, and more people dying, and more sort of grief and sadness and stress and so on, then I started to use the Qigongs, which are about cleaning the vibration, you know, with the emphasis on cleaning. Now this is done at home when they get home, and some of them have involved their whole family, because again, this in the burnout. This is a very classic situation where a professional nurse or doctor does not want to take all this baggage back home, because he or she has a family, has a partner who often doesn't know what to do, how to help, you know, because you can't do it with words. You can't sort of stroke somebody and say, it'll be all right, when that person has to get up the next morning and the next morning and the next morning, you know. Pills don't work, tranquilizers and, you know, sleeping pills, they don't work. They just push everything under. So often the partner feels impotent, you know, and that adds to the tension. You know? So the children don't want to see their father or their mother breaking down. The partner doesn't want to see their mother or father breaking down. So they usually stop. I've heard this many times, and I've seen it on interviews with the BBC, even with the doctors in England. They stop the car and they have a good cry before getting home. That helps, obviously, you know, to let it out there. But the best thing is that everybody is involved, because in a burnout situation, like in a post-traumatic syndrome situation, the more people who support you, the better. You're not alone. You're not isolated. And this is very important. So my whole thesis in this is, if you can, get your children to do this with you. You know, just tell them how much you're suffering. Tell your partner how much you're suffering, and then do these exercises with them. And they're very simple, with some sort of sounds. You know, the 6 sounds, very old practices.
I think you do want us to experience some of what you do, and this sounds like a perfect moment to maybe teach us what you taught them and then experience it. How does that sound?
I'll show you one of each aspect.
Okay.
You know, one of the practices for centering and relaxing, and then the other one for cleansing. Okay?
Are you going to get us to do them? Yes?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Be on your feet.
Okay, everybody on their feet.
Now tell me if you can see me, the whole of me.
Keep going back if you can.
Yes?
Missing your below your knees, but everything else I can see.
Probably. What about now? Yes?
Missing your ankles and below.
I have no ankles. Didn't tell you that. My legs are very short. I have no ankles. All right now.
Yes, just about.
Okay. So this is the first. This is what we call sung. Okay, and there's many ways of doing this, and it's used an awful lot in the martial arts. I'm sure you use it in your Aikido, not only to maintain the center and maintain presence as a result of it, but to recover it. You know, once, if you ever lose it, you know, like for instance, you're interacting with another body, boom, 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 and then very easy to remain out there energetically, remain fragmented. Okay, so this is a very, very simple qigong to really remind yourself of coming back to the center. And I think we share the same. I think you call it hara. Yeah, in the Tai Chi it's called the Tantien, the lower Tantien, which is below the abdomen. So this is our center of action as well. So in this qigong, and qigong is always intention, breathing, and movement. Sometimes no external movement. So arms open, in or out with your nose or your mouth, it doesn't matter. I prefer the nose. So you're breathing in and gathering the energy to the center. As though you're pulling threads back to the center. As you breathe out, lower. Just relax in your knees a little bit until you feel the balls of your feet on the ground. So it's not just thinking about lowering, it's lowering until you feel that. Okay, let's just repeat that. Breathing in, gathering to the center, breathing out, and relaxing. Relaxing from the top Tantien, the head, all the thoughts, all the stuff on your shoulders, your emotions, all the tensions. Let everything sort of hang down. This is sung, is the meaning of sung, sinking. And again, breathing in and centering, and keep the intention very relaxed. You're not controlling anything or trying to do anything. Very relaxed and then sinking. So centering and sinking and anchoring. Breathe in. Breathe out. Let go. Let go of the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the tensions in your body, and let everything hang down. In. And breathing out. Three more times. Keep the intention clear, simple, and relaxed. And note the sensation. This is very simple sensation of drawing everything to the center and letting everything sink down to the ground till you feel the contact with the ground under your feet. That's the important part of sinking. Centering, last time, and then sinking. There's another part, but between the two parts, I'd like you to just put your hand on the lower abdomen. Keep your attention there, very gently feeling the expansion and contraction. beneath the palms of your hand. But again, without obsessing, without creating more tension. Just feel that peaceful movement of your breath, your lower abdomen. And if you can't breathe deeply down there, it doesn't matter. Just keep your hands there and keep your attention there. And eventually it will sink. Okay, now the second part of the same practice that I give. This is obviously a shortened version, which is now to be connected, so that this presence, this centeredness, is not something you have to defend, not something that sort of closes you off from people, especially for health professionals. They need to be completely connected, not just connected to the outside, but connected to themselves. Right? So we start again, but this time, change the intention. So the intention this time, with the in-breath, is to center and sink and relax down. So in-breath, center and sink. Now with your out-breath, the attention towards what's going on around you, outside of you, with the out-breath. In-breath, center and sink. Now the out-breath, what helps is just to go through your senses. The eyes first, for example, without having to possess anything. Just open your vision, wake your vision up. Again, the in-breath is centering and sinking. The out-breath, now the ears, your hearing. Just release your hearing. Be aware of your hearing. In-breath, again, centering and sinking. Now the nose and the scenting. Again, in-breath, centering and sinking. Now open the mouth a little, the tongue. All these are part of your intuitive awareness, if you like, your complete awareness. All the senses, but it's not mental. In-breath, centering and sinking. And the last of the senses here is your skin. So let the skin breathe and be aware. Now your complete attention through all the senses and including all the senses to what's going on outside you, but without losing your anchor, your centeredness and your connection to the ground. So breathing in, center and ground, breathing out, and totally aware, in front of you, behind you, to either side, above and below. And then there's one more ingredient. Now, let the intention expand a little more towards the inside. So as you breathe in, center and sink and anchor. As you breathe out, be aware outside of you and inside of you. Listen to your body, your heart, your mind, the three centers. Again, breathing in, centering and sinking. Breathing out. Your attention towards the outside and towards the inside. One more. Breathing in, centering and sinking. Breathing out. Now, the last three, we don't have any movement. As you breathe in, don't move, but your attention is still there. As you breathe in, center and sink. as you breathe out, let your awareness and your attention flow outward and connect inward. Keep this intention. Centering and sinking and connecting. Connecting outwardly and inwardly. Okay, that's the first. Maybe at the end, if you're not sure of what you've just seen or what you've just done, we'll go through. We'll have a few minutes. But I'd like to go on with the second part. As I said at the beginning, what I'm trying to transmit to the people who are right in the thick of it, in the front line, is something like this, which you can integrate and practice while you're working, just to pause. But there's another one. The other aspect is what to do with all the stuff that you accumulate and you generate in you. Okay. Now this is rather a long qigong, and it takes quite a few sessions to do. So I'll just take a very, very simple one. Okay? Just take a very simple one that we do. There are 6. These are called the 6 sounds. And they're translated into English as the 6 healing sounds, something like that. But actually, the Chinese term Liu Si Jue just means the 6 sounds expressed, right? And they follow the 5 elements, which are considered to be outside of us and inside of us. Okay, again, it takes a few sessions to do this, but I'll just go straight to the point. Let's say you've had a really rough day at work. You've been cross, you've had somebody angry with you, or you've observed the anger of people around you, and then you come back home, you turn the telly on or the internet or whatever, and you see more cross people, more angry people, angry at the politicians angry at each other, whatever, anger. So we do this cleansing of the vibration without judgment. That means you're not even trying to understand what happened. You're not sort of saying, I was cross because, you're just going straight to the energy, which is potentially toxic. So in the same vision, we say that anger, unexpressed particularly, eventually is a factor in the damage of the liver. Anger damages liver. So it's very important to keep clearing, if you like. And the clearing, that doesn't mean either curing or whatever it is. It's just not keeping the vibration stuck in you and swirling around like a potential poison in your system. And in a situation of distress, in a very intense situation, this is, when you come home, it's very good to clean, or at the end of a week's work, the end of a cycle of work. And as I said to you at the beginning, this is what I suggest to the people who are working with me: bring your family into this. That you're all doing this because it really helps. Okay, I'll just do the one. There are 6 altogether. Maybe another time we'll do all 6. But this is called wood movement. So we'll do it in silence first. Breathing in, keep your back relatively straight, go down, bend your knees, go down. And as you breathe out, feel the movement coming up. So this is called wood, or the Chinese character is tree. Right? Something that comes up from the roots, up from the earth. Let's do it again. And it has to do with many qualities. The spring, the liver and gallbladder, as I said. Rising energy. Imagine a plant coming up. Now, used as cleansing of vibration, we use a sound. So I'd like to share with you the sound. The sound, you don't have to get it correct or anything, but it's a sound which helps to express And again, this is not expressive therapy or anything like that. But it's just that the sound, the vibration, helps the vibration that you might have accumulated or generated or absorbed from others to just, instead of being there potentially damaging, to just be released into the air. So it's very much an air qigong, right? So the sound is siu. And one of the advantages of Zoom is you don't have to worry, well, I hope, that anybody hears you, right? So make whatever sound you like, but do make a sound. Do make something sort of close to siu, because it's a rising sound. Okay? In breath, yeah? Don't go to the content just yet. Just go with the movement. Siu. Okay? Now connect it to the content. So let's take this week, just this week, the anger that you've known this week, the anger you felt this week, with no judgment. There's no room for judgment here or justification. So your anger. The second time, other people's anger directed at you, or the anger that's affected you, that you've witnessed, which is also unpleasant. The third one is the general anger in the world. It's to do with all that's happening. Just relax. So this is a very shortened version. We do 6 of these sounds, lasts a while, and then we do a qigong to really open and dissolve all the tensions and all the stuff we hold. But I'd like us to finish the session with something that is also very important, is the recharging. The recharging. So especially if you're working under great stress and distress, it's very good to recharge. So very simple. This is breathing in, and as you breathe in, connect to the space around you, in whichever way you connect with that space. The space in your room, but beyond the walls as well. Space, the space of the stars, the space, in your county, the space going into the hills, into the horizon. So this is with the in-breath. Connect with the space. It's breathing in all the time. And as you breathe out, just visualize and imagine this whole space penetrating and coming down through you with your out breath. And again, all the way down to the feet. So treat yourself like a plant that receives the energy, the universal energy, and lets it penetrate and float down through your organism, nourishing you right down into the roots. And again, keep the intention very gentle. All this comes from love and from compassion to oneself. It doesn't come from control or ambition. Just keep it very soft. Connecting with space, air, breath, and bringing it down, receiving it in your vessel, your organism, letting it flow down into the feet. Let's do one more together. Yeah. And just very deliberately put all the complements together, left and right, front and back, upper and lower, inner and outer. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. So I obviously this really helped. I'm interested to know what was reported back to you when people got the idea and they'd done it for a few weeks. What did they report back?
They want more.
Well, that's good enough, I think. No, really, really lovely. And what I've really enjoyed about our chat so far is the fact that so much of what you've said are phrases that I hear in Aikido and I use myself. For me, there's such a strong connection between what you're teaching and what I'm teaching anyway. I've got other questions I could ask you, but I really feel I'd like to open it up to everybody else to maybe share what they just experienced or to ask you questions. So guys, if I unmute you all, if you've got background music on, put your mute back on you know, or mute yourself until you've got something you want to say. Is that okay? Okay, so bear with me as I sort that out. Okay. Okay, so we should all be back now. Okay, so I'm just opening it up to full screen so I can see people. Is there anyone like to kick us off?
Pedro.
Go. Piers, did you have something?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. Is there anybody who's got any questions you would like to ask?
Yes, I'm unmuted, Doctor. I can just
Go for it. Go for it.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful and generous and sharing of your experience and very, very relevant in all sorts of ways. I've been introduced to Tai Chi from different sources and made my own routines and patterns, but they don't feel in any way authentic apart from myself and my experience. But I wonder how adaptable or how much things can be taken and adapted by people, or whether it's always essential to stay true to the tradition and to any particular patterns or lineage.
I'm very much, I mean, ever since I started, I've been quite rebellious, you know, in all that. I don't really go for purity and lineage, but I do go for essence. You know, that's the important part, you see. And I think that a lot of martial arts, but in the Tai Chi, just the same as every other martial arts, I think that, you know, that there's tradition, you know, that I hope I've contributed to breaking, which is that the master, you know, the tradition of the master and the person who knows, you know. I'm very much not for that. I'm very much for the just you know, well, to use a Buddhist term, we use the term kalyana mit, which is good friend, and the good friend should be always learning, you know. And the trouble with the masters, they stop learning, or just because they have a name. Many years ago, somebody rushed up to me in London. He said, "Oh, you know, there's this great master. He's called he's a Chuan of the Chuan school, Chuan style." And I didn't want to, you know, discourage him or anything, but my mom's a Chuan, you know, my mom's Chinese. And So I said to him, yeah, there are only about 12 million of us. You know, you don't have to get very excited.
Well, that's another thing we share too. I'm a bit of a revolutionary too. The other thing you said that I loved earlier on was you learned so much from what you called effectively your students, but the people that you were working with. And I, you know,
These are the people. These are my real teachers. Of course, I learned from the people I learned from, but that's not the point. And the point is to, I feel, I don't know how you feel about this, is to not go on with that hierarchy and the pyramid and the great person at the top who's stuck. I mean, I knew enough of them back in the 60s to see how trapped they were by this. And
totally with you.
Compassion. My first teacher, who you mentioned, Trungpa Rinpoche, he was a very famous Tibetan teacher, but he was caught up in that too, you know. And I mean, I didn't even intend to teach. I was asked to do so, but I really was very committed to trying not to do that, and not falling into that trap either. Just keep curious and learning, you know.
Absolutely. Yes.
Quentin, can I ask?
Hold on a sec. So it's interesting what you say, Tew. I'm Quentin's brother, by the way, so very nice to see you. Often when this particular subject is one that's dear to my heart, really, because in most martial arts, we always look backwards and go, the people before us were much better. And I personally believe that everything is part of a great evolutionary phase, and that things actually need to progress. So do you think that your Tai Chi has progressed from where you were, not you personally, but that the art itself has progressed in the last 30 years?
Absolutely. And I'm totally in agreement with you, but it's progressed thanks to science as well. See, when I was a young man and beginning my training and all that, you know, science was on one part, spirituality was another. If you did Tai Chi, you were kind of weird anyway, you know, if you were interested in anything like that. And on the other side was this scientific mind. But in the last 30 years, more than 30 years, there's been this coming together of science supporting, you know, you have Fritjof Capra, all those, Rupert Sheldrake, an old buddy of mine from Cambridge. People like this who have really opened up science as well, and who have brought in spirituality, who now talk of yin and yang and all that. And this has really opened things up, you know, and this is both demystified things, but also it's put it into a context which is very powerful. And so, yes, definitely, it's evolving, and thank goodness, because otherwise it would just be a museum piece, you know, that you just trotted out and said, oh, it's got the right label because the master comes from the family or the Wu family or the Yang family, you know. It seems sad to me, that kind of trying to keep it, you know, not evolving. The whole point is that it should be evolving, and it should be useful now, not for people in the past, you know. It should be useful, and it should be challenging us now to, the art, a good art, must be evolving. It must evolve, you know.
Hugh, was that your voice who was trying to ask a question before?
Yeah, Quentin, thank you. It's a silly question, but I still have the urge to ask it, and it is about the sounds.
Yes.
Are they just sounds, or are they based on maybe words or concepts?
Well,
if you understand the drift. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the question, Hugh. Some of the sounds have a meaning. The sound we did doesn't have a meaning, but some of the sounds means flowing out, for example, you know, or a punch, something like that. But the point is about the sounds is that it's, you know, eventually you would do it in silence. The sounds are just vibrations to release, okay? And again, there's no purity about it. There are several schools which say this these are the sounds, you know, and others who say, no, these are the sounds. And they get stuck in that nonsense, you know, whereas just use the sound. Even I would even go so far as to play around with them, to play around until it works for you. I had somebody here once who was a very famous singer, and she was in her last stages of a very painful cancer. You know? So she came to prepare herself with me. So I started giving her the sounds, and she said, I don't know whether they're helping me, the sounds. And I said, but you're a singer, you know, why don't we, in this session, just why don't you get to a sound which helps you? So she because she was a trained singer, she started singing, and she sang around her tumor, you know. She released the pain from the tumor through her own sound.
So I have a theory too that intention is the thing. So when I'm doing healing, nobody's taught me, well, this is the point you must go. And I've come to the belief that it doesn't really matter. If this is the thing that you're trying to cure, that's where the energy goes. Is this related to what you've just said?
I would go along with that, but of course this needs a lot of work as well. You know, there's a very thin line between ambition and intention. And of course we want to help, we want to cure, we want to heal. But at the moment that we're actually applying ourselves, this must give way to intention. Ambition must give way to intention, and intention, and this is where the spiritual part comes in. See, the intention is our little selves as channels, you know, with the intention that is guided by compassion and so on, empathy and compassion. But actually the energy of healing is not ours. It comes through us. And of course, there's a paradox here, because you've got to be impeccable in your intention, but absolutely empty at the time that you're doing it. You know? And this takes practice as well. And this is martial arts again. You know, it's the Wu Wei. It's not doing, you know, which doesn't mean do nothing or do anything you like, but it's a certain type of doing which has this whole spaciousness coming in.
So we talk about in Aikido, empty mind. It's that kind of state.
Yeah. Mushin, you call it Mushin, I think, in Japanese. Wushin in Chinese. Empty mind, but it's not empty and kind of like idiot mind, you know. It's empty of tension, and it's empty of ambition. Okay. It's empty of duality. So at the moment that you do whatever, it could be a throw, it could be responding to somebody coming in, you're empty, you're not thinking, it's without that tension of predicting what's going on or projecting what's going on. And it's a particular, I think they call it flow, modern, you know, you're in the flow, which a lot of creative people have.
Two words spring to mind, that it's kind of a selfless state and a state where you're channeling what's going on. Steve, your hand was up. Steve, do you want to have a question?
Yeah, just to comment, I thought, I remember saying to you earlier that I thought I may have problem with this visually, but I completely understand exactly what was happening, what was said, everything. Now, maybe because I already do similar within the Aikido structure, or is that because of how it was put over, how it's explained?
Probably a bit of both, I would say. So Steve, line, just so you know, Tew. So I almost said to you, can you describe exactly what you're doing, because we have someone here who can't see what you're doing.
Well, I'm glad it reached you. And I'm amazed it does. I'm very grateful for your words.
Yes.
I was completely aware of what you're saying, how it works, how I felt, and I felt that all what you were saying was going through me as well. So if there was anger, you can move it around and so on. And I assume it's based on because of the breathing technique were very similar in that way.
Yes, it's about treating our energies and our emotions as vibration, you know, because when emotions are very difficult to get to, and of course in the tradition, the therapeutic traditions, which are really useful, you know, we try and get to them through words, and it helps. And sometimes it unblocks, sometimes it, you know, it sort of wakes us up to what happened and how it came about. But it still leaves the challenge of what you do with the actual energy, see, the actual vibration of it, which can be so harmful, not just to oneself, but to other people around you. And this is where I think something like this kind of Qigong complements the more psychological approach, verbal approach, cognitive approach, which is also valid. I'm not saying this is better or, you know, or this is all you have to do. It depends what kind of stress, what kind of trauma you hold in you. But sometimes a combination helps, you know, to talk to somebody about it, but also then to sing it, you know. The moment that you connect, I mean, for a start, just connecting to your anger and to admit to oneself, oh yeah, I have been angry this week. You know, that's already an opening. And once you sing this, you know, the release is just palpable, and it's very simple. That's the point. You don't have to scream it out. It's not like a screaming, whatever there was in the 60s, screaming therapy or something.
We've got two people with questions, Jamie and Yanis. Let's start with Jamie. Do you want to turn yourself on?
Yeah. Hello. It's so wonderful to meet you, and just resonate completely with what you're teaching and saying, and your work as well. I've done some work on the front lines with you know, COVID medical people. So really, just wonderful. I have a question. And the question is this, you know, as we're doing breathing, cleansing, centering, et cetera, all these practices, I notice it's one thing to do where maybe we have some fresh air. I fortunately do where I live. But, you know, there are a lot of people who are in inner cities, who are in small apartments. It's a kind of toxic air, toxic environment. It's not so easy to get away from other people or from, you know, even on hospital wards. I mean, we've had that issue where it's, you know, you want to just go over here and maybe do a little breathing or centering, cleansing for a few minutes to de-stress, and yet it's kind of a toxic and sick environment on the ward. So I wonder if you could say anything about that, because, you know, I'm just so aware of some of our different circumstances, and like very literally in terms of where people are and the energy around them, and even what they're breathing, and the ability to cleanse with all this other energy and toxicity around.
It's a very real, and I have no solutions to that, I'm afraid. You know, I feel for the people who don't have the space and who are caught up sometimes, you know, with young children and everything. You know, it's difficult. It's really difficult, and that's why I mentioned earlier that, you know, in these cases, I try and suggest to the families, look, you know, I try and get the whole family onto the screen, if you like, and just say, look, how are you all doing, you know? And your mum's in great stress and everything. And then, you know, I think there's a lot of kindness as well that's come out of this COVID. And if people just have to make a little step towards each other, and you could have a whole family doing this, doing something that suddenly the walls of your tiny apartment don't matter, you know? They cannot. I'm not saying it happens with ease, you you know. But, you know, sometimes people have an enormous space, but they're still completely trapped in their own. Do you know
That's
what
true.
I'm saying? You know, sometimes it's even worse because they have no excuses. They can't say, oh, but I can't go out. They can, but they start suffering an awful lot. But I mean, your question is completely pertinent, and I wish that everybody had space to, you know, to practice. But the important thing is the practice, because I think the practice can release you from whatever confinement that you may be in, a small prison, a small jail, a small, you know, have to be. If from within you're liberated, you know, and you're connected, you know, close your eyes, you can close your eyes. You don't have to have sight to see space, you know, to feel space.
Yanis, you had a question.
Yes, thank you. Hearing and seeing the sound that I already done so many years with you, and relating it with, as you said, the intention and the vibration. This gave me immediately the whole situation I'm dealing with the last 2 years of a friend having a cancer, and just a week before he was they cut his leg off from down the knee. So this guy is an excellent friend and colleague and an excellent artist. And the idea that came to me right now is how this man could do those movements with one leg. And then your word intention came in there. So I have what to tell him tomorrow when I'm gonna see him, that you when he takes texts, he sees the whole sound of the flow of the part, or the feelings of the part, or the relations between the other characters. So that's something that he knows very well. So I think he's going to understand perfectly the sound without making the moving standing up. How do you think?
You could be seated. You could be seated. I work with people who are discapacitated, you know, who can't move their legs. And you can do it just with the intention, as you say. You know?
You said that and created me the idea. Yeah. Thanks anyway.
Yeah, interestingly, one of the things that I've just opened up a conversation on in the last day or two is how we make Aikido more accessible to those who have some sort of, well, they don't have the conventional ability. They're blind, or they have one leg, or they're living in a wheelchair, or they have cerebral palsy, or, you know, there are always workarounds. There are always workarounds.
You can do the Tai Chi without moving at all. See, I mean, this is where, if you went for purity, you know, the master would say, you're not doing Tai Chi because you can't do all these fancy movements and things. But, you know, the essence of Tai Chi is just this. That's all you need to do. And if you can't move your arms, you know, then you visualize.
Yes.
You just visualize giving and receiving, and harmonizing the giving, harmonizing the receiving, harmonizing the straight line with the circle. And that's the essence.
Yeah. So, folks, any other questions? Any other feedback that you would like to give to Tew? Joanna, do you want to take yourself off mute?
Joanna.
Hey.
Hello.
So thank you very much for the practice. Still reciprocating inside of me, outside, inside, all the sides, and the breathing, just like feeling myself inside and outside. And something that really came on, it's all about the same language, Aikido, Tai Chi, Qigong, and how can we, like in this social distancing time, just wake up our body outside and inside? So when we go to the mat again, or when we are teaching or learning again, we can be more aware and more wake up, you know, to just feel where we are, to hear everything, to smell everything, to taste everything, have all of our senses. And how can we bring this to our Aikido practice? Because I don't know, sometimes you are too much turned off, just like everything's off, all of your senses, and then you just go there to hit someone, or to defend yourself, or to grab a wrist, you know, and you are just focused on that, and you forget to wake up your whole body and your whole surrounding, your surrounding from outside and also your surrounding from inside. So I was just thinking about that, how powerful, how open is to open ourselves up, and how good it feels. And I don't know, it's something that came up. So thank you very much for
it's
this
free.
precious moment.
It's free.
Yes.
Yeah, it frees, exactly.
You see,
Freedom.
This is the gift that I receive all the time, you know, because apart from the health professionals, I accompany people. I'm accompanying some people in there who are preparing to go. And the great gift of doing this, I mean, it's an honor anyway, but is that, you know, that sometimes you have a person who's dying, who doesn't have long, and says, you know, I feel really alive, you know, and who's at peace, you know. And sometimes they say, oh, I saw the light coming through the window. And so sometimes even, that's why in my work, in our group here in Spain, we talk of healing at the end of life, you know. Okay, you're going to die, but a part of you is healed. It finds this great peace, not just peace, but this great celebration, you know, the celebration of through your senses, through your presence, you know, through contact, connection. That's the word, connection, you know. And it's for free to be connected. That's the point. And I think the whole point is just the importance, the essence of doing all that we're doing. You know, on the play part, yes, it's nice to sort of throw another body around, or be thrown onto the mat or whatever, you know, or do some beautiful movements, you know, and then feel the energy coming through and so on. All that's really nice. But essentially, that's why it's the same language. It's about connecting, you know, being alive, present, you know, and not just thinking about presence, but being present. It's very different. You know, it's not a philosophical thing. It's really feeling the present, and it's not obsessive either. It's very relaxed and present and celebrating, as you were saying just now, things around you. Yeah. And you know, connected to yourself. I think that's in the end, and that's why we have to practice, and that's why I'm grateful for the practice, because, you know, before I did the practice when I was very young and crazy, I was always looking outside. Fantastic. Always outside for satisfaction. You know the song?
Okay. Anyone else have a question?
Can I say something?
Yes.
Thank you, Tew, for your teachings. Are precious as always. And I would like to say the importance of Qigong with dealing with space, because in these very times of stress and fear, the only weapon we've got is this practice, and the space that is created through this movement is so liberating and so give us inspiration to keep on doing what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope to see, you know, I will go and see you in Greece again, maybe in October.
To ask this question, I've heard you speak Spanish, Greek,
Greek English.
Greek English, yeah, Greek English.
English, Chinese, I suspect. Thai. How many other languages do you know?
Lots
He
of,
also
lots of.
speaks French. He also speaks French.
French.
And that's why you're a Cambridge grad.
No, I got the worst degree. It's gone down in history. I was terrible. Terrible economist.
Well, is there such a good thing as a good economist? Get it wrong.
But look at the world. Look at the world.
But my son's studying economics. I'm going to be careful what I say. Anyway, I think that's a wonderful moment to draw things to a close. I want to thank you, Tew, for the profound things that you've said. I feel really such a strong connection with what you were saying, really on point for me. I love the connections with Aikido. I think all you Aikido practitioners will have noted that. And for all you Tai Chi people who have never experienced Aikido, you can find just what Tew's been talking about within Aikido if you find the right place. But I believe that's also true in Tai Chi. You need to find the right place. It's been a wonderful session, really, really wonderful. Thank you all so much for turning up. You've made it a very special evening. But of course, Tew is the most special here today.
It's been an honor, and I'm so glad we're in the same direction, Quentin. I know we are. And
Very much.
We need
very much so.
Really
a lot
appreciate
to do. There's a lot of work we need to do, all of us together. And I'm very honored, and it's been a great pleasure to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tew.
Thank you.
Sinelada, tatapume.
Thank you.
Now,
Bye-bye, all the best.
All the best to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Quentin.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
May I ask a question to Tew?
Well, I haven't closed the room. If he's still here, you can ask the question.
Okay.
I can't see him, I have to say.
Okay. Anyway.
You'll have to ask.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for organizing this, Quentin, again. Thank you.